To begin this evening's video address, I think it only right to mention that today is Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen Day, December 31st, the day that our Grandmaster teacher, beloved ancestor, and all-around hell-raiser against white supremacy was born. These are for us our holy days, and it cannot be missed to mention them. Dr. Ben gave an example of a black man's life well lived. Once he set his feet on the path of knowledge, he never, ever took a detour. This is a man who poured out his entire being into the pursuit of educating and uplifting his people against all odds, external as well as internal. White universities and colleges will have entire campuses with individuals who combined could not even come close to 1/4 of what Dr. Ben managed to accomplish and what he knew. All of their rhetoricians and masters of indoctrination pale by comparison with this giant of intellect. We, whose ancestry goes back to the killing fields of the American South, as we continue the effort of distinguishing who we are and clarifying our place within the global African diaspora, we do make it clear that we do not deny that we are part of that diaspora, but we are clarifying our place within it. And it must also be said, when you look at any of the peoples who have come out of Africa, what you see is only here in the hells of North America do you have those who have had the strongest and longest sustained resistance to white supremacy. And it must be said, we are waiting for the rest of the African diaspora to catch up to us. We are waiting for the rest of them to realize that there is indeed a global African family. We are not attempting to bury that idea. We're trying to wake everybody else up to it, but we are not going to wait around for anyone to do so. It will be up to them to catch up to us. But that said, Dr. Ben was ahead of everyone on this one. And that is the reason why we must and will always honor this grand master teacher. And so it is on this day, his day, that I offer my most heartfelt and grateful salute to one of our greatest grandmaster teachers, Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen. Rest in power. Say, I don't know if you've heard, but apparently there's going to be yet another election coming up next week. Apparently something's going down in Georgia. Now, what's that got to do with black people? Can't tell because nobody's promising black people anything, but you got some Negroes who are running around trying to tell black people that it's the end of the world. Why, we've got to help out the Democrats, especially Joe Biden. We got to make sure Joe Biden has all the support he can get in the Senate because the Republicans are stonewalling. And if you give the Senate to the Democrats, then the Democrats are going to do what for black people? What are they going to do? You see, the idiots who were telling all of us that Trump needed to be voted out because Biden was going to do things for black people and Trump was too dangerous to have in the White House, we've been demanding to know since Biden's been bringing in all of these civil rights fossils for some abuse and telling black folks what he isn't going to do. Why do we need to be supporting these scumbags again? And well, they've fallen silent as far as the rah-rah. You need to be voting for Biden. They've fallen silent on that one, because their master has made it to the White House. But that doesn't mean that they've fallen silent as far as saying, well, vote for these other do-nothing Democrats over here. Nobody is saying what black people are going to get. Now, New York Times Magazine ran a little article day before yesterday, and they're talking about knocking on 2 million doors in Georgia. Basically, this is nothing more than a thinly veiled advertisement for a group calling itself Black Voters Matter. Now, I mentioned them in passing last year, and back in September 2019, I did a video about black front groups, among which being the notorious Amy Allison She the People, and another group calling itself Black Pack. Now, what do these clowns have to do with one another? Well, Well, the New York Times Magazine points out that there are two of the founders of this Black Voters Matters group, Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright. They're apparently running around trying to drum up support for the Democrats in Georgia. But of course, it's the old game of you need to show up to vote, but you're not going to get anything for that vote, mind you. Now, reading from the article, it starts off with, a red, black, and green sign on the side of the bus reads, "We got power." James Brown, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud," began blasting from a portable sound system. How condescending is that? Whenever they come up to black people, they never show up to black folks, say we're going to be talking about what you're going to get, the money you're going to get, the punishment for those who are harming you. This is how we're going to force the machine to bend to our will and to do what you want. They don't do that. Instead, what they show up with is like it's a freaking party. Oh, we're going to have some James Brown music playing. You know, this pitch that they keep coming to black folks with, this garbage, it's no different than get your booty to the pole. That's basically the same old thing. Every time I show up black folks, there's going to be some music, going to be some dancing. Never going to be treating black people as a serious constituency with serious interest that must be vied for seriously. No, they're not coming to us to be serious. They're coming to us at deciding, well, we're going to treat you guys like a bunch of juvenile delinquents. Well, the problem is there's too many black folks who are not willing to push back against this. They'll let you run up in their neighborhoods and come talking down to them and treating them like oafs. Now, the piece goes on to say that Latasha Brown, who's one of the co-founders of Black Voters Matters, she's coming up to people holding a sign and asking people, are you registered to vote? Is everybody in your house registered to vote? You know, that line, whenever somebody comes up to me, especially as a black person, and asks that question, talking about we need to know if you're registered to vote, it reminds me of the movie Primary Colors. Those of you who don't remember, Primary Colors was basically a movie with John Travolta and Emma Thompson, and it was basically about the Clinton presidency, the Clinton administration, except they were using John Travolta as some sort of analogy for Clinton. He was a Clinton-esque candidate running for the presidential nomination. And the thing is, his black staffer basically gets disgusted with the lengths that this Clinton-esque character is willing to go to just to try to win a primary. Then in the end, he tells him, you know what? I'm quitting. I can't put up with the lies anymore. I can't sit here and carry water for you. I'm just quitting. And John Travolta asks him, well, what do you intend to do? And the staffer goes, I don't know, maybe something clean. Maybe I'll do a voter registration drive. And then John Travolta's character asks him, and after you've gotten everyone registered to vote, who are they going to vote for? Now, the thing to be remembered is that gives you a window as to how politics actually works. It's part of the reason why we keep telling black people we got the game all backwards. See, you don't start off telling black folks to get registered to vote. You start off with, what is it that we want? To go to the polls and call yourself voting without first establishing what the agenda is that you're trying to get enacted into law, to vote without an agenda is at best a waste of time and at worst self-injurious. And truth be told, time is our enemy. So there is no at best at all. It's just worst and very worst. But this is how most black folks are. When it comes to voting, you would never ever go to a grocery store having no clue what the hell you're even going to get. And yet you're talking about voting, which is far more important than going to the grocery store, and black folks show without even a freaking clue. Some fool comes up to you asking you, are you registered to vote? You ask them, what tangibles am I voting for? They don't just come up to you, you need to vote for me, you need to vote, you need to vote. No, I'm going to tell you what I'm voting for so you can explain to me why you ain't ready to get my vote. But this piece is nothing more than a sloppy kiss. They give this Latasha Brown woman basically a nice little write-up. And they basically say that this woman's got Black America's best interests at heart, etc., etc. They mention her little partner, Cliff Albright, about 2 or 3 very long paragraphs later. So obviously the woman who wrote this piece, this is meant basically to be a sop to see if there's any black women out there whose hearts will still go pitter-pat if they drop all of the feminist undertones and overtones, this thinly veiled dog whistling for black feminists. They're trying to figure out whether or not that tired, dead strategy has any more life left in its decrepit bones. Now, the piece goes on to say that Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright, a friend with whom she founded Black Voters Matter in 2016, had spent years preaching the importance of local elections and engagement all over the South. Now, that date, by the way, 2016, is important. So keep that date in mind because you will be seeing it again. Anyway, these two had been running around much of the South in 2016 trying to sweet-talk black folks into voting. Quote, so much of what we do is about affirming black people and pushing the concept of power that it is something we can have and deserve, she, talking about Latasha Brown, said. We are rightful participants in this democracy. That's just a bunch of empty words. It means absolutely nothing. But that's what they specialize in. They talk a lot and say absolutely nothing. They promise you nothing. They are specific about nothing. They don't tell you what the hell you're going to get. We are rightful participants in this democracy. No crap. Now, what are we going to get for our vote then? Nothing. Vote for us. Are you registered? You need to vote for us. Now, the piece goes on to write, 3 years ago, the group mobilized black voters for Doug Jones' Senate race in Alabama, in which black voter turnout made a crucial difference. Well, that is at least the first accurate thing that's been written in this article. Yes, it was black voter turnout that had put Doug Jones into the U.S. Senate briefly, but Doug Jones seemed to immediately forget about all that black support the moment that they called the election for him. Back in 2017, during that special election, Doug Jones, as far as he was concerned, well, it was immigrants and women and people of color and, well, maybe some black folks perhaps. But he had very little, almost nothing to say about black folks 3 years ago. Oh, Doug Jones, he didn't seem to think that black folks made much of a difference for him at all. He certainly didn't feel like he had to promise us anything. Well, that must be why Doug Jones lost this time. He lost his little would-be re-election this year. Oh, yeah, see, the white media don't make much mention about that because it's a matter of you have to point out that black folks were the ones who put him in the Senate, and it was black folks who made it where he couldn't go back. Now, you're not going to sit there and say, well, what about the Latinos? See, the only time you can drag out that crap about Asian Americans made a difference, Latinos made a difference, that's if the Democrat wins. If the Democrat loses, then all of a sudden it's because black folks didn't turn out. No, you don't need black folks. What you need are Latinos, and you need Asians, and you need immigrants, and you need women, and you need white centrists, read casual racists. That's who you need. You don't need black folks. What the hell you need us for? They need us if they're going to win. Well, if they're not willing to point out that it was black folks who are the ones who make or break presidential and federal elections, then they don't need our vote. If you do not acknowledge that it is the black vote that matters, then in that case, then you go chase all those other votes that you think matters, and you will lose. That's the lesson of Doug Jones. But the thing to remember is Black Voters Matters. They were in there stomping for Doug Jones 3 years ago. And guess what? He didn't give black folks a damn thing. Here they are, though. They're back again in Georgia now. They've gone from Alabama to Georgia, and they're saying, y'all need to vote for Warnock and this other clown. Well, what's Warnock said he's going to do for black people? Is this guy talking about black tangibles? What's he going to do for black folks? Well, he'll be better than these Republicans. So it's the same old game. Now, I want to know what the hell went wrong. Keep in mind, Black Voters Matters, they were there for Doug Jones in 2017. Apparently, they were one of the decisive game changers. At least that's how the white media and these clowns like to portray that. And they like to make it sound like, oh, these guys, they were the ones who made the difference. They were the ones who got out the black vote. Well, how come they couldn't get out the black vote this time around? What, they lose their mojo? Yeah, it seems these would-be influence peddlers ran out of influence real fast now, didn't they? And they're not the only ones who apparently have lost their juice with the black community. Now, I like to think of what I do here as part of the reason that I tend to be rather sparing with these info dumps that I do is because I want for people to get into the habit of actually going back and re-watching the video essays that I've done. Because basically I try to have this as not just a time capsule, but also a repository for information. Because I tend to be able to figure out some of these people who the white media and the white powers that be try to push at us. And I try to select the ones that I look at and say, okay, it's obvious that the white media is trying to groom these guys to have credibility with us. They're trying to build and credentialize these clowns. So let me select certain names like Amy Allison and Adrian Shropshire and Black Pack and others, because I can bet we're going to be seeing these guys again. And I want my people to get into the habit of recognizing these names. I want to make these names notorious among black folks. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at one of the people who Black Voters Matters has been mobbed up with, one of their partners in crime, Black Pack. Now, that's one of the groups that I talked about last year, September 2019, when I talked about them and She the People. Now, the first thing that you need to know about Black Pack is that they were founded in 2016. So, as you can see, there seems to be a whole lot of black folks who, as soon as Obama was about to leave the White House, apparently there were all these groups who thought to themselves, we might want to get started trying to figure out how we can corner the market on the black vote. But it wasn't a matter of these were conscientious black people trying to empower black America. These were actually nothing more than clumsy front men and front women for the Democratic Party trying to figure out, well, since Obama's going to be gone, how do we keep black people as fooled and bamboozled and mesmerized as many of them have been for 8 years under Obama? But they didn't realize black folks who may have started off bamboozled quickly became disillusioned, and now we're outright opposed to go along with the okie doke. But what do we know about Adrian Shropshire, the one woman who allegedly founded Black Pack? Well, the first thing we know about her is that she gets most of her money from wealthy white donors. Now, according to the Center for Public Integrity piece that I quoted from last year, Shropshire began her political maneuverings in the early 1990s when she was a student at the University of Southern California. She was steeped in liberal, read white feminist activism and community organizing. Now, why do I say that that's white feminism? Well, look what they write next. Shropshire said she assumed student leadership positions in which she fought against discrimination and violence against women. So right off the rip, what we see is when she says discrimination, this is more of that black, brown, trans, female discrimination. Don't mean black people. Otherwise, she would have said black. Discrimination is a term that applies to everyone except for us, because it only gets enforced. The laws only get enforced for everyone except for us. And violence against women, again, this is somebody who thinks that her biggest problem in life is that she's female and not that she's black. So this is somebody who's trying to distance herself from blackness. Now, she did a brief run as an intern for a Los Angeles council member. Then the LA riots came along and she thought to herself, well, obviously doing this violence against women thing that's not the lick. That's not going to be the easy path to bamboozle black people, because now the headlines are dominated by race. So I better do a pivot. Oh yeah, this woman started off with that tired old stale black feminine nonsense until the LA riots put reality on the front page. Same thing with police violence now. Oh, a whole lot of the black feminists have been trying to do a brief pivot, but just like Shropshire, it's all a scam. They're only going to do it for 5 seconds and then it's back to the feminist stuff. Shropshire said she found herself speaking to South Los Angeles residents and the Los Angeles Police Department about police brutality, economic issues, and race. First of all, it's very ominous sitting here saying she found herself speaking to South Los Angeles residents. How can she find herself speaking to South Los Angeles residents? Notice how I spelled that out like that. They don't say black, so I'm not going to say black. Since they say South Los Angeles, now I thought the South Central Los Angeles was supposed to be black territory. Nah, but apparently it's not. It's just South Los Angeles residents. See, they're trying to de-racialize this, okay? They're trying to figure out, well, let's just say South Los Angeles residents. Why can't you say black ones? Well, she's supposed to be the head of Black Pack, right? And she found herself speaking to these South Los Angeles residents. Yeah, like she accident. I don't know how I wound up doing this, but somehow I found myself off the path of feminism and off the path of violence against women. I mean, white women, that the stuff that really matters. And somehow I found myself speaking to these niggers over here. I don't know how. Oh, and I was also speaking to the Los Angeles Police Department. Yeah, because everybody knows how honest, honorable, and filled with integrity the LAPD is. And she talked to the LAPD about police brutality. Yeah, because the LAPD has no idea how brutal and lawless and violent they are. I mean, it's not like anyone's ever told them. So she was presenting them with brand new information, right? These are a bunch of clowns looking for consulting jobs, looking to get on TV so they can try to build some sort of consulting hustle for themselves. Talking about economic issues. Do you see anything in her entire description up until this point that says a damn thing about economic issues? And race. Again, what does she say? Anything when she was at USC, she was doing liberal activism, community organizing. What's that got to do with race? When she was trying to get herself, I guess, on some sort of student council at the university, she fought against discrimination and violence against women. I don't see anything about race there. You can discriminate against women. They ain't got to, especially white women. They ain't got a dang thing to do with race. You can discriminate against immigrants. They ain't got nothing to do with race. And nothing about economic issues. This makes absolutely no sense. They're trying to burnish her resume with all sorts of claims that simply aren't substantiated by what you see she actually did. She ain't done a damn thing about economic issues or race. Unless the only thing I can see her talking about economic issues would be the old male-female wage gap, which means white women, white male wage gap. They don't give a damn about how much money black women do or don't make. The piece then gives a quote from Shropshire saying, "I always say that even now, I don't know that many black organizers and political activists whose first engagement in political work didn't begin with a campaign around police brutality." Funny, because when she was at USC, her entire idea of student leadership was based on discrimination and violence against women. Didn't have a damn thing to do with police. Now, Shropshire then decided that she would spend her 20s involved in social equality activism. Okay, notice how we ain't saying anything about black people again. We're deracialized again. After her position with City Councilman Ridley Thomas, she spent 10 years working for Action for Grassroots Empowerment and Neighborhood Development Alternatives, a membership organization that now focuses on social and economic justice for Black and Latino residents. So this woman spent her 20s spending time propping up the great lie of the Black-Brown Alliance. That's what she spent her 20s doing. Talk about your misspent youth. The Center for Public Integrity piece goes on to write that Shropshire said she has also been an advisor, read consultant, to donors, labor unions, and foundations on base building and issue campaigns. Okay, so in other words, this woman's trying to be some sort of half-baked political consultant. That's what that means. Shropshire created Black PAC 2 years ago. This piece was written in 2018, so 2 years ago means 2016, as Obama's days as president were dwindling and Trump's political fortunes were improving. Black PAC's office is located in a 12-story Harlem, New York office building. Shropshire, who also serves as Black PAC's treasurer, how convenient, says she works alongside a group of advisors and consultants, although she wouldn't say how many. Well, isn't that a comforting thought? Black PAC receives millions of dollars in donor money, most of it from wealthy white interests. And yet you got one woman, the woman who founded the group, she's also the treasurer. Well, that's comforting to know. Well, as things turned out, the piece goes on to write, black voter turnout declined in 2016. Can't possibly imagine why. Trump, of course, defeated Clinton, and black folks clearly were the reason that the Democrats lost power. So Shropshire and her political organizing contemporaries from across the country posed a question to themselves. How could they sustain black voter interest after Obama left the White House? Now, if this woman really is as plugged in with the black community as she pretends to be, she shouldn't have to wonder any of that at all. She should know exactly why it was that black folks stayed home in 2016. And you notice that nothing that she says is about how do we make sure that black people's interests are actually answered. Nothing here even implies that black people were being ignored, that black people had interests that were being completely and thoroughly marginalized and had backs turned on us. We were being slapped in the face by the very people who we put in power. Our tangibles weren't on the ballot. We sat here augmenting and incentivizing and rewarding people who were attacking us and protecting those who attacked us and making sure that all the tangibles we were supposed to get went to everybody except for us, trying to help create a demographic counter lever that's supposed to neutralize us and the political threat that we represent to white supremacy. That's the reason why black folks stayed home in 2016. But you notice how this Shropshire woman, as the piece states, she thinks like a doggone white person, like a white Democrat liberal. Oh, she's not asking, how do we put black people in the driver's seat? Instead, it's, now how are we going to get these black folks back to the polls without doing anything for them? How do we get them interested again? How do we get interest? How do we get them hyped up again? We got to get them hyped up. Well, the easiest way is going to be put tangibles on the table. Well, without doing that, we're trying to get them to get back to the polls without doing anything for them. They don't have to ask, how do they get black people back to the polls? They already know. This is a matter of how do we trick black people back to the polls? How do we neutralize all of this independent, growing black fervor that is taking root in the black community? How do we neutralize this? Well, as the piece writes, a key answer, big money. Of the more than $5.4 million that Black PAC has raised since its founding. Remember, this article was written 2 years after Black PAC was founded. So in 2 years, these guys came up with almost $5.5 million. In only 2 years? For a group who, literally the woman who founded it, she's also the treasurer. Oh, they want to make it seem like she's running some sort of shoestring operation. Yeah, a shoestring operation that's raking in millions of dollars every year. Does that even sound right? The reason that I mentioned this Black PAC group and She the People is because I need my folks to understand the difference between grassroots and AstroTurf. This Black PAC, just like She the People, it's a front organization by some white folks who found a front Negro to be their front woman, and she's going to pretend as if I've been in the trenches with black people. Well, aren't you a feminist? Yes, but I got to say that to black people because they won't fall for my con any other way. But they get her to get out there and sell the soap. And nobody asked where the money's coming from. You think they gave millions of dollars to this woman and they didn't want anything for it? She gets money from white labor organizations, and organizations who, by the way, do everything that they can to keep black people from being able to join them, but keep black people from being able to get hired. Some of the most racist groups in America happen to be these so-called labor organizations. These labor unions are some of the most anti-black racist groups you can imagine. But this is who Adrian Shropshire's Black PAC gets a disproportionate amount of its money from. In 2016, the first year that Shropshire began her Black PAC and collecting money from it, SEIU, one of, if not the biggest labor union in America, they paid Shropshire $100,000 for political activities and $21,600 for her consulting. Well, they could have just said $120,000. You ain't got to break it up like that. The point is, she got to pocket $120,000, at least in her name, and the rest of it goes to her organization where I'm sure that she doesn't do anything untoward with it. By the way, SEIU refused to give a comment for this piece. But you know, they're not the only ones who give money to Black PAC. Priorities USA, the main super PAC that backed Clinton in 2016, also gave money to Black PAC. And Women Vote, which of course means white women. That's a group whose only interest is in backing Democratic women who support abortion rights. Yeah, because Black America doesn't have anywhere near enough abortions. We need more abortions. So Priorities USA Action and Women Vote are among Black PAC's top bankrollers. All of them funded by wealthy white donors. The piece goes on to write that Senate Majority PAC has, for its part, given Black PAC $566,240, money that comes from the fortunes of hedge fund manager Donald Sussman, billionaire businessman George Soros, among others. Yeah, it wouldn't be long before George Soros' name came up. I mean, he's like a bad penny. He just keeps popping up. So we see basically the usual suspects. Didn't take long before some familiar names came up, now did it? This is who Adrian Shropshire gets these millions of dollars from. Now, do you think that they just happened to come upon her and they were like, you seem like you got a good heart and you seem like you got some good ideas and we're going to just give you millions of dollars. Don't tell anyone, though. We don't want our names out there. We're doing this for the greater good. Does that sound like what happened, or does it sound more like, as usual, white power found some compliant, sniveling, spineless jellyfish sellout to be their front person? You're going to get out there and you're going to mislead these Negroes. Oh, these black folks are breaking bad on us. You better stop this tide of black anger that is rising because it's going to cause all kinds of problems for us. You better find a way to get them back on the hype train. You better find a way to do it, and we'll float you millions of dollars if you do. Now, of course, she doesn't get to keep that. That's just a matter of they're using her as a front. Okay, so what do Black PAC and Black Voters Matter have in common? Well, for starters, these people do know of each other. And they also talked with Latasha Brown for this piece. I'm talking about the Center for Public Integrity. They talked with Latasha Brown. And one of the things that they made very clear was that they've got to do more about black women in these spaces. We need more black women. Here comes that doggone feminist garbage. They talk with that Albright character, and he said that listening to and investing in black women is critical. Now, why in the world are they trying to drive division and wedges? Why are they trying to distinguish black women from the black community? You should just be saying black people who got their heads on straight and are going to fight night and day for our tangibles. Instead, it's a matter of, well, we need to differentiate and distinguish between the black community and black women. Now, you see, recently, with those of us in the black media, we've been making it very clear. We're going to distinguish between ourselves and black immigrants and everybody else from the diaspora because we have unique concerns due to our history here that set us apart. And that being the case, yes, we are drawing a distinction, not a division per se, but a distinction. But here they are trying to take black women and pretend as if black women need to be distinguishing themselves from or separating themselves from the black community. That is political divide and conquer 101. Investing in black women is critical. Yeah, because black women are separate and distinct and different from the black community. This is not about separating black women from black men. This is about trying to find a way to drive a wedge and slice off black women from the black community for the sake of making sure that all of this angry black tangibles talk doesn't have the support that it could have. We need to divide black folks on that. We need the black community to basically be fighting against itself on whether or not it should actually have tangibles. We need for that to be a fight within the black community. So they get these bought and paid for front Negroes to help sell the soap and push that dogma at us. Shropshire's Black PAC's leader is certainly positioning herself as one of the black women in the room. Well, if she is in the room, she's there for herself. Now, you see, Black Votes Matter. They already know about this Shropshire woman. According to the piece, apparently they claim that Black Votes Matters has a little bit of tisk-tisking about, wonder where she's getting her money from. And, well, that is interesting that her money, that Black PAC's money seems to be coming from nothing but white people. You better believe Black Voters Matter. They're licking their chops and going, well, hell, hope nobody asks where we're getting our money from. And hey, you think Soros has got a few extra dollars for us too? That's all that's going on here with them. The piece goes on to finish by saying both Black Voters Matter co-founders, that's Cliff Albright and Latasha Brown, the founder of Woke Vote, have expressed interest in working with Black Pac. I'll bet they have. These folks are knocking down millions of dollars a year, and all that white money they're getting. I bet you that Albright and Latasha Brown looking and going, man, we wish we could get that too. And Latasha Brown with that bunny ruckus blonde weave on her head, I'm sure she's looking to go, I could buy me plenty of bundles with $5.5 million. I could come up with that. So understand that's what's going on here. Self-interested and corrupt would-be political power brokers, a bunch of would-be influence peddlers who are going to try to use their ability to deceive and bamboozle us as their ticket to ride in white political circles. Here they are, hard at work. So the same clowns who gave you Doug Jones 3 years ago, they're back. Now they're telling you vote for some Democrat senators in Georgia because we all know how well that worked out with Doug Jones. We all know how much he did for us, right? Just understand, these people did not just sprout out of the ground. There was nothing spontaneous about this. This happened to be white political donors who saw what was happening. Black people had soured on the idea of attempting to play the game of maybe the Democrats are going to do something for us, or maybe this black politician is going to do something for us. And black people are making it very clear. We're separating from the process. And what that means is revolution could be right around the corner. In other words, we're setting up an all or nothing proposition. We're either going to get our way or we're going to get our way. Simple as that. So they got to find a way to get black folks. Hey, you got to vote. You got to vote. Why? Because as I've taught you, people who are voting are not in revolt. When people, especially a group, decide that they are going to abandon the ballot box, what they're making is a political and social statement. What they're saying is we have absolutely no faith in the political institutions of this country. Voting doesn't matter. Now, people don't simply go home after that and say, oh, well, I guess we'll just put it with whatever. No, when people abandon the ballot box, what that means is from now on, we're going to be getting what we want through alternative means. We've seen in 2020 what that means. It's no coincidence that especially as more young black people have been saying, no, the political process doesn't work, they've been taken to the streets. That's no coincidence. That's how it works. When people decide that the ballot box no longer matters, why shouldn't they take to the streets and raise pure hell? And as you've seen with the laws that have been passed, apparently that's how you get the bastards to move. So somebody's like, well, we got to get them to think that the system could work. Do something. Because these guys, they're not voting anymore. They're in the streets in full revolt. We got to stop this. We got to blunt the energy. We got to do something to cut this off. So understand that this is what's going on. A whole bunch of black folks pretending as if they're speaking for you and me, when all it takes is just a little bit of research. You can see who the white puppeteers are pulling their strings. There's no need to harp further on them because this is just reiterating what we're supposed to know. This is the importance of speaking for ourselves. A lot of black folks like to pretend as if they don't know what to do. You are supposed to be the force multiplier here. What you hear in places like this, you are supposed to be repeating and augmenting. Anytime the white media calls themselves putting some clown in front of a camera or trying to do some puff piece where they're trying to lay the groundwork for some new charlatan, some new black flunky that they're going to try to present as being our misleader. What white power likes to do is it likes to control both sides of the conversation, as Neely Fuller said. So what they do is they find some black flunky and they put him in front of the camera and say, tell us why black people shouldn't get anything. Well, why black people shouldn't get anything is because blah, blah, blah. Because that's a setup. That's what it's supposed to be. They create a self-fulfilling prophecy with every one of their so-called news pieces. It's nothing more than indoctrination. And every one of these clowns, you're not going to hear anything about reparations from them. You're not going to hear anything about punishing the police. You damn sure didn't hear anything like that from Shropshire. Here she is talking to the LAPD, talking to them about what? Only thing I talk to them about is, so do you want the box or the chair? So Black Pac and black votes matter. Same thing, man. Poison fruit of the poison tree, brought to you by the same people, the same idiots who were pushing do-nothing candidates at you 3 years ago. Here they are all over again. Same game, second verse, same as the first. And we all know how the wealth has been concentrated at the top. So for billionaires like George Soros and these hedge fund managers and such, billionaires, multi-billionaires, you think they give a damn about $1 or $2 million to some do-nothing heifer in Georgia or wherever the hell Shropshire's from? You think they care about that? That's pocket change for George Soros. You see, when you get that kind of money, when you get that kind of wealth, the kind of money that you couldn't blow in 3 generations, if you tried, when you get that kind of money, you stop worrying about stacking up the money, and what you're really concerned about are things that money can't buy, or trying to use your money for things that money normally wouldn't buy, and that happens to be social control. See, that's the real function that elections serve under white supremacy. They happen to be a yardstick, a barometer by which you can measure how much of the population is still on board with thinking that the very white supremacists who put these do-nothing candidates on the ballot are actually going to put candidates on there who will tear down white supremacy. White supremacy brought you Barack Obama. White supremacy brought you Alexandria Ocasio-Horseface. White supremacy brought you Bernie Sanders. White supremacy brought you Joe Biden. White supremacy brought you Kamala Harris. White supremacy is not about to put anybody on that ballot who is going to destroy or tear down white supremacy. They'll put somebody on there meant to pacify you, as we saw with Biden. Idiots actually calling into Jason Black's broadcast saying, well, Biden, he gonna be scared of black folks. What might happen if he don't do what we want? So we vote for him. He gonna do what we want because he's seen what happened this year. He be scared if he don't. Well, he got voted in. What's the first thing Biden says? The big problem in America is black people. And you guys, you better learn to start working with Hispanics. And no one's done more for black people than me. He's slapping black people around, especially them do-nothing civil rights retreads. He's slapping black folks around. Does he seem to be very humble? Does he seem to be very intimidated by the prospect of black discontent? No, Joe Biden seems more emboldened than he's ever been, and why not? He's looking and going, God dang, 50 years I've been abusing and attacking black people. I should not have been able to get one black vote, but here these idiots are making excuses for to vote for me. Man, there's nothing I can do that these dumb Negroes are actually going to turn on me against, so why not abuse them? Because there's no way to offend them anyway, so why should I waste time trying to be polite to people who it doesn't even matter if you're polite to them? Forget about doing anything for black people. He's looking and going, tangibles for you? I should do something tangible? I'm not even going to do anything polite for you. Give you tangibles? I'm not even going to give you common courtesy. That's what Joe Biden took from black people deciding that they would make excuses to vote for him. And you better believe the political powers that be are looking at this and going, well, you know, maybe 2020 was just black folks really blowing off. You know, maybe one of those steam valves blew this year. Instead of it being blowing off some steam, maybe the steam valve blew. But don't worry, we got ourselves a new cog in the machine, Kamala Harris. Consider her to be our new steam valve. And now we got that replacement in place. After this, at least black community, black women in particular, we hope, are going to be back on board. Or at the very least, we've dialed them in for another generation of sitting on their hands and hoping that these white supremacist tools will do something for them. In the meanwhile, here comes Adrian Shropshire and Amy Allison, and here comes Black Pack and Black Votes Matter, and we'll see how much mileage we can get out of these flunkies, how much mileage we can get out of these tools. Any article about any black politicians are illegitimate unless they are talking about the complete and thorough failure of both parties, particularly the Democrats, specifically the Democrats, to provide black people our tangibles. See, the white media, as far as they're concerned, 2020 popped off specifically because there's folks out here talking about black people are going to get theirs or pure hell is going to rain down on the nation. We got to do something about that. That's making, because next these niggers are going to be saying, and by the way, since these billionaires like George Soros and such, I think we know where our tangibles went to. I think we know where our reparations are at. And we might not be too bashful about going to them and getting it. No, as far as they're concerned, it's time to close the chapter on all of that black discontent. It's time to tell black people, well, the white media, we're giving ourselves permission to move on from talking about your concerns. We're giving ourselves permission to say that the only legitimate voices are going to be our black frontmen and frontwomen, our flunkies who we've propped up. We're giving ourselves permission to just ignore you. So what else is new? They've never actually been reporting what we say, and we don't want them to. This is about showing them that we have got as much influence as they do. The white media's goal is to reach and impress and aggregate as many of those North Shore, cash-fluid, casual racist, read white moderates as they can, and other assorted wannabe white supremacists. And our goal is to reach the black grassroots because that's where things are going to happen. You want to shake the earth, you start with that black grassroots. Everybody else, they've got some minor gripes, which aren't even important. Ours are the ones that truly matter. Because our interests are the ones that bring down white supremacy. And by the way, as we intensify our efforts, do not be surprised when we see Adrian Shropshire and Amy Allison and our foolish pals over at Black Votes Matter. Expect them to be getting some airtime. The white media is going to be dragging them out and having them saying, well, this is divisive talk coming from people online and they're talking about tangibles and such. We saw what Joy Reid tried that mess. They were trying to see if there was any more mileage left in the old, well, all these black people up here, these angry black folks online, this is all Russian propaganda. They were trying to see, is anyone falling for this? Anyone going for it? And the answer was no. Before it was all over, they had that Ali Velshi guy on MSNBC basically saying, well, you know what? It's not Russian propaganda. Okay. Yeah. That's what the white media does. They're in the business of trying to dictate to us what our beliefs should be. And what they found out was, there's a bunch of black folks out here who dug in our heels. There's a bunch of black folks out here who are not going to be indoctrinated. There's a bunch of black folks out here who are heavy into brainwashing. There are a bunch of black folks out here who are heavy into mind control. We believe in controlling our own minds. Hell, before it's all over, I would not at all be surprised if you saw Adrian Shropshire or Amy Allison or any of these other flunkies, these clowns over at Black Voters Matter. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys wind up getting themselves indicted for embezzlement or misallocation of funds or malfeasance or some other sort of charge. People like George Soros and others, they didn't give these clowns that money because they wanted to make them rich. They didn't give those clowns that money because they like them. And in the end, white supremacy always breaks its tools, so I wouldn't be surprised if before it's all over, you see these people in handcuffs or otherwise getting indicted for something. But regardless, I need my people to understand what's going on here. We do not listen to, nor do we take our cues from any of these folks who just popped up out of nowhere. Some fool you never heard of. Who are you? My name is Cliff Albright. Well, my name is Latasha Brown. Don't listen to him. It's all about me. It's black girls rock, black girls magic. And you need to vote. Who are you registered for? Who are you registered with? Who are you registered with? Are you registered to vote? Vote for what? You need to vote for the Democrats. Don't you know how racist them Republicans is? These clowns who you never heard of who pop up out of nowhere and they're coming up to you telling you what you need to do. You better be wary about that. You better be opposed to that, and you better spread the word about that. Each one of you is to be a force multiplier for this gospel of black empowerment. Not merely for the talking points, but also for the mind game that goes behind it. The mentality and the agenda. That's what you do. Each one of you should be that seed of truth, ultimately meant to grow into a mighty oak of black empowerment. But that depends on you. You can't be waiting to see just have 4 or 5 black folks, no matter how eloquent or able, carrying the message. All of us are soldiers in this war, and we all got to pull our weight. So don't waste time asking, what do you want me to do? You already know what to do. You also already know what to say. Nothing left for you to do but to say it, because the thing is, the only thing that the Black PACs and the Black Voters Matter con games have going for them is white money. We've got the black grassroots. Now, they may have us outfunded, but we've got them outmotivated and outclassed. But to that, we must also add, we have them outacted too. We've got to outnumber these guys when it comes to our activity. Because the truth of the matter is, the fact that we are even bringing this stuff up is so threatening to white power, so threatening to their black flunkies. The fact that we're even bringing this stuff up, our tangibles, that alone as an issue is so damnable to them, so threatening, that one person even bringing it up is something that they cannot even allow. They can't even tolerate that. They're terrified of that. There's a lot of black folks in Georgia who have been seeing these feeble, pathetic attempts to try to get black folks onto the treadmill again. Some clown comes up to you telling you you need to vote. First thing you let them know is it is not my job to try to sweet talk myself into voting because you want me to. It is your job to make it clear to me that you understand what I require. And once you have taken the pledge to what I require, then I go and vote. You're supposed to be coming to me and doing nothing but being a sock puppet for my interests. Same way you are for the interests of these white feminists and these old wealthy white men and these white unions who don't want black people there. You're a sock puppet for them. You can repeat chapter and verse what they want. Well, now you're going to do it for us. And if you don't, well, Doug Jones won't be the only person licking his wounds and wondering where all those black voters disappeared to.